Hitman 2-3, this is Hitman 2. What's the status? Over. 2-3, stand by. Goliath, this is 2 Bravo. Request permission to engage enemy paratroopers and attempt to snatch a grid Papa uniform 259er, 119er. Break.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Ben Powers with the Commander's Voice. My guest today is Mr. George Luz Jr. It's always a pleasure having him on the show. George, welcome back.
Hey, thank you so much, Ben.
So today we're going to be talking about the Battle of the Bulge and Bastogne. It's December, and as folks know, the battle took place from December 44 to January 45. It's the 76th anniversary of that battle, and Easy Company 506 played a prominent role in the Battle of the Bulge, and we're going to be talking about that today. So, George, I understand you've got a lot of great stuff to show us today. Could you show the viewers what Bastogne actually looks like?
Sure. I was there several times. Last year, and this one was taken, I think, during the 75th anniversary last December. There wasn't any snow on the ground at that particular time, but you know, this just kind of gives you an opportunity to see what it looks like today.
You had indicated when we were talking about this before we started taping that those are actual remnants of actual foxholes from the fighting.
Yeah, they're still there. You know, it's interesting how, you know, reenactors go back and they want to spend some time in there, and they kind of get in there with their shovels and they dig them out even more. But yeah, so those are the original parts of it, and it's been expanded. It's been expanded over the years. One of the things that I find interesting is when you look into the next, after these trees, you see the trees in the background. Well, there's a road in between there. So this was a part of their perimeter right here. That road was like the line of demarcation. The Germans were on the other side. So you could see how the proximity was, where, you know, your enemy is right across the way from you. So it's pretty wild. And whenever I go, I typically go with Stephen Ambrose Historical Tours, and I'll always try to find a little time to kind of get away and just listen to the wind blow through the trees.
It's obviously a very important place to you, and a sacred place for very many people. The company, as I understand, took a lot of casualties there. Folks who've read the book or have watched the series will remember that. And I understand you want to go a little bit deeper into some of those stories today.
Well, you know, I was very close to a lot of the guys, you know, Babe Heffron, for example, and he was always looked back at his time in the service, and especially there were two guys. One guy's name was Campbell, and the other guy's name was Julian. And John Julian was killed, and I want to show you a picture of the area. On one of my recent trips with Chris Anderson, who is a great historian, took us to the area where John was killed. The railroad tracks, you've read the book, you know the railroad tracks are on the right-hand side. And so we went to this area last year, not as in this year, but the year before. The interesting thing is I went to the set to watch the series, a portion of the series be filmed. And luck would have it, I got a chance to see that particular scene of John being killed. And it was a tough scene to watch, tough scene for Babe, and he was always kind of been haunted by that. And he had made a pact with John and several others that if anybody got killed, they would go and visit with their mom. And it took Babe many years to muster up the courage to go and see John's mom, but it did happen many years later. So, but yeah, you could always tell when you talk to the men in December and January, the tone in their voice was a bit different.
Yes, sir. And it's amazing when you think of guys like, you know, Babe Heffron. Courage is a word that comes easily to mind. based off their feats of arms, if you will. And so just to understand how amazingly difficult it must be to meet with the family, the mother of a fallen comrade, that it took 25 years to be able to bring themselves to do that, just speaks to how difficult that must have been for these gentlemen.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know. You can only imagine the memories that buried in their mind and that they have to carry with them forever. You know, but there's a couple of other special places here I want to show you. This is overlooking Foy. This is where they made their attack on Foy. Lieutenant Dyke was leading the charge down the hill, and naturally we saw what happened. He froze. Captain Winters sent spears down to assume control and take it on into Foy, carry on that assault. But this area shares a little bit more meaning to me because, as you can see, that's where the perimeter is straight ahead, and back before they were taking some of their barrages is where the guys would always stand off the line, so to speak. And whenever I go, I kind of go off the line and I think about what happened when some of those barrages came in, because this is the area where Muck and Pincala were killed. And, my dad came within an eyelash of being killed. If you've read the book, it's much more accurate. The series is a little bit more drama. It has my dad climbing to their foxhole, but my dad was going to his foxhole. And if you'd like, I could read actually my father's own words describing that particular moment.
Oh, please do. That would be a treat.
All right. All right, let's see where I can pick it up here. Let's see. I probably should have outlined this earlier. I did actually, but let's do it. Let's see. Okay, I was told to go back to battalion and grab some shovels. Some big shovels. By the time I got back, it was dark. What took place after that when I got back was unbelievable. Two buddies of mine, Muck and Pincala, had dug a hole about 6 feet long by 6 feet wide by 2 feet deep. Not having a hole dug, they asked me if I wouldn't mind sharing theirs. Being a thick-headed Portuguese, I refused and finally dug a slit trench. 6 feet long, 1 foot deep. Then came the artillery shells, falling all around. One fell mightily close. As the daylight came, someone asked me to go wake up Muck and Pincala. I looked into their hole and saw nothing but dirt. I jumped into the hole and started digging with my hands. I felt their sleeping bags and pulled them both out, dead. I always thank God for my thick head. So that was my dad's description. So that's about as accurate as it can be. And so it's kind of chilling for me to read that stuff because it's deep enough, but I look at the families and I look at Skip and I look at Alex. And the interesting thing over the years, we've had a chance to meet the families of some of the soldiers who were killed. Naturally Skip and Alex and Gary Ann Bingham, her uncle was Van Klinken, and Dukeman, we met his niece. So it's been amazing to meet those folks. And whenever I'm in Luxembourg or wherever we're in Luxembourg, we always pay a visit to the soldiers' graves. Interesting thing too is Tim Pincala is a nephew of Alex. And I was able to see him at the reunion last year in New Orleans. And every chance we get, every time he's at a reunion, he'll always be able to come up with maybe some new pictures or a new article or something like that. And he had this article that had dates back a little bit, and I'll share just a little bit with you.
Please.
It says, Alex's sister Irene was especially close growing up in South Bend, Indiana. She was the 9th and he was the 10th of 13 children. She used to tell people he died in the Battle of the Bulge. That's all we knew. That's all they ever told us. And that story, that's all they ever told us, and that's all they ever knew, is probably replayed and replayed and replayed by so many relatives of these guys who were killed so many years ago. And but to hear it from somebody who actually experienced it, you know, brings it really that much closer to home.
No, that's amazingly powerful.
And then Skip Muck, his family. This is his nieces here. The two girls in the middle on the right is Eileen and her sister Becky, and then the other two daughters, nieces. And I was able to meet their mom as well. And this was taken at a dedication to a monument in Tonawanda for Skip Muck's family and the Nyland family. But at this event also was, well, there's Richard, who played Skip. And if you remember, Skip was talking about his girlfriend, Faye, Sweet Faye Tanner. And that's her right there. And that's her husband, Carl.
She looks amazingly young for someone who is a World War II paratrooper's girlfriend.
Yeah, because this was July 3rd of 2010. So it was a beautiful day, and Richard was gracious. He made a wonderful speech at this dedication. And let me click to the monument itself. So this was dedicated to Skip Muck and the Nyland family. And as most of your viewers know, the Nylands are the ones that were the genesis for the movie Saving Private Ryan. And Rick Lewis was the chairman of this monument committee, and his wife Lisa and many others who live in the town of Tonawanda. So they did a wonderful job, and this was the area that they felt when Skip swam the Niagara. They usually have to go upstream quite a ways, and he was trying to cross it, and he did. And his buddy Fritz Nyland was in a canoe following him along so he wouldn't drown. But so anyway, that was the connection between the Nyland family and Skip. And every time whenever I'm in Normandy, and this was at the 75th anniversary of D-Day last year, and this is Preston and Robert Nyland.
There were 4 brothers, right? 2 died on D-Day, 1 in the Pacific Theater or the Chinese Burma India Theater, and then I believe Fritz was in the 101st, and he's the one who got home.
Yeah, and then there was Edward. He died, let's see, he was shot down May 16th of 44. Preston, Robert, and Fritz. Yeah, Fritz lived until he was 83 years old.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so that's the amazing thing. What I find about Bastogne is the stories that these men suffered through. We know how cold it was. We know they didn't have the gear that they needed, and the Germans seemed to have everything they needed. But what we find is these guys, the men and women of World War II, were able to find ways to get things done that the enemy did not.
That's an absolutely fabulous legacy. And I really appreciate taking the time to share your dad's words with us today. These amazing photographs, these amazing stories. It's really been special. I know you've got one last thing for the viewers and listeners, an interesting clip from an interview with Major Winters and his biographer, Stephen Ambrose. So why don't you set this up for us a little bit?
All right, yeah. So it's kind of unrelated to Bastogne, but you saw this in the series. And this is Walter Gordon telling the story about one of the significant moments that Major Winters had with Captain Sobel. I think it runs a little about a minute or so.
He had a constant battle with Winters, even threatened Winters with court-martial. And
you give me some documents on that.
that's interesting to read. But that shows the rigidity.
I know.
So Winters ended up being battalion commander, and later Sobel had to confront Winters, and Winters outranked him. And he had advanced to the point where he was over Sobel, and he says the most rewarding moment of World War II was when Sobel had to salute him, and I can understand it. And it was quite an achievement.
I think what's so amazing about that, George, is that the folks who know Major Winters' story, you know, he's a Distinguished Service Cross recipient. He's the epitome of a combat leader. And the level of stress his relationship with Captain Sobel must have caused him for that to be the most rewarding experience he had during the war, was when this man had to salute him as a superior officer. That just has to speak of the intensity of that relationship when you got a guy who made 2 combat jumps, fought in some of the toughest campaigns in the ETO, and that's what he remembers really as the most rewarding experience he had.
Yeah, they certainly did have an adversarial relationship. And you know, the more we read about history and about personalities and different points of view, you know, most of the men do credit Sobel with bringing them all together in a unique way against him, and it built the character that they stood with moving forward.
I think that's a great note to go out on. So thank you for joining us today, George. This has been a great interview. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And I've got a feeling we're going to have you back on the show sooner rather than later. You always have something unique to share with the viewers and listeners.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And I hope it's something that people enjoy at the end. They don't say, geez, I'll never get that 20 minutes back again. So as long as they enjoy it, it's all about sharing.
You're still trending as the most popular interview we've ever had thus far, so you can hold that near as going into 2021.
Well, thank you. Hey, I'm just blessed that my dad was George Luz, you know, and he fought in World War II like 16 million other Americans.
And God bless all of them. Thank you, George, and you have a great day.
Thank you, Ben, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.